Moyo, and I'm a co-founder for Nigeria America. If this is your first time on one of our sessions or watching one of our videos, we are an organization of internationals looking to help other internationals looking to move out of Nigeria or any African country to come abroad to study or to work. Our goal is to be a community of internationals helping other internationals. Our session today is going to focus on tech roles in the tech industry. And we have with us here today 3 awesome panelists that are going to share their experience and provide insight to those that are looking to get into that industry. But before we move to the participants, I'm going to pass it on to Yewande to introduce herself, and then starting with Tega, we'll go around and just say something about your background and what you're currently doing.
All right, thanks.
My name is, hi. Oh.
That's fine. I'll just do a quick intro and then I'll pass it on to you. But just, hi everyone, my name is Yewande, also co-founder of Nigeria America. Like Moyo said, we started this as a way of, helping people who desperately need information to get to the places where they need to be, but they don't have a way of getting that information. So, and today we're just talking more about like tech careers in the tech space, and I really hope that everyone, like who has signed up, really gets what they signed up for. So, Tega, pass it back on to you.
Hi. Well, my name is Tega, and I have a bachelor's in electrical electronics from the University of Maiduguri, Nigeria. A master's in telecoms and computer networks from Case University, New York. And I currently work as a software engineer at Visa, and I'm in the big data space.
All right, thanks, Tega. Ngozi?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ngozi Onoha. I have a bachelor's in computer information systems from Babcock University in Nigeria. And I have a master's degree in management information systems from Northern Illinois University in Illinois. And I currently work as an end user support engineer at Citadel in Chicago.
Thanks, Ngozi. Babatunde.
Yeah, so my name is Babatunde Fashola. And I have a master's, sorry, maybe bachelor's actually, I should start with that. A bachelor's degree in medical physiology and a master's degree in bioinformatics. Studied at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. And I presently work as a software engineer at Twitter. I'm presently working on machine learning and predictive analysis of on how we save ads at Twitter. That's me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're actually just going to get right into the session. So the way this is going to work is our first half is going to talk about like skills and the background of our participants, while the second half will focus on how to get into the actual industry. So starting with, how did you navigate finding a job as an international student? I'll start with you, Ngozi.
It was a struggle. I think I probably started looking for jobs my final semester. But before then, I had an internship. I actually worked where I interned. So after my first semester, I started focusing on getting internships, and I applied everywhere because I can't go anywhere. So I used LinkedIn, I used Jobberman, is it Jobberman? I don't know, a couple other online sources that give you jobs. And I also utilized my school's platform for getting students jobs. And that's actually where I got my internship from. It was from applying for my school. And so I interned at Citadel that summer, and then I got a callback offer after I graduated or before I graduated, and I kind of wanted to go back to that same role. So I just kind of took it, but I was still looking at other opportunities and primarily focused using LinkedIn and my school portal.
Cool, awesome. So LinkedIn and use your school. Anything else that you, Tega or Babatunde, that you want to add onto that? How did you navigate finding a job?
Yeah, I also applied everywhere. I used my school's platform. It wasn't really easy. So I did work pro bono. That's working without pay, basically, in the tech space. And a lot of what I did was skill development. I had to read a lot and network to ask so many questions. And that's how I got to learn about a few conferences we had, like NSB, Ships, SUI, Grace Hopper. And I got my internship from NSB. And that's how I got my current position.
Oh, and for those that don't know, NSB is National Association of Black Engineers, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. All right. Babatunde, anything else that you did?
Yeah, so as everybody said, it was really hard. I can say that for, for a fact. I attended conferences and I was rejected. I remember applying to Intel and immediately I actually just applied. I got rejections like 5 minutes afterwards. I applied to Google, I failed the interview. I applied to Bloomberg, I failed the interview. I applied to Zappos, I failed the interview. Like, these are several failures that I've actually gone through. And I purposefully, I mean, I went through all of those things and I failed them and I learned from them pretty quickly. I got to realize that like some of the things that I just didn't have some skills that were very needed there. Particularly when it comes to algorithms. Like I just, because my background was not traditional CS, I just didn't know exactly how to navigate that space in itself. So going back to go learn the things I needed to learn was very helpful in me getting to like get the job I needed to get. And so, yeah, like everybody said, I got my job. So I interned at IBM and then I also interned at Twitter. But eventually I loved Twitter way much more than I did IBM. I said to do that. Yeah, so it wasn't easy. I can say that for sure, for a fact.
All right. Thank you all for sharing your experience. And I think that's actually a perfect segue to the next question. So what are the skills that are relevant to your field in particular? So to what you do. And Babatunde, I guess you can go first since you kind of like talked about your skills.
Oh yeah, sure. So your skills are very quite different. Like I think in the tech industry, as software engineers, people have always talked about how, you know, some of the things that we asked at interviews are not what I do.
Sorry, one moment. Hey, okay, thank you for going on mute. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Some people actually have mentioned how like some of the things that we ask at the interviews are not as relevant to the things that are very essential. Like but for you to be able to get through the door, you possibly need to like understand algorithms because that's what you're going to be tested on. Some of the skills that you need is to understand the programming language that you're actually coming to write. So if you say that like not essentially or very small startups, people will tell you and say that like you must know the programming language that you know the startup is actually going to like work on. So if your startup is working on Python and then they're using Fast, for example, you possibly need to know that. But if you're working at a very big company, they actually are language agnostic. So you don't necessarily have to know the language that you're going to use. So if you use C++ and they're going to use Java or Scala or Dart, you possibly do not necessarily have to know that language. But the major thing is that like you should be in a place where you know algorithms and then you understand that and know exactly how to write the language that and express the algorithms in in the language that you're most proficient in. I don't know. Tega could say more to that.
Yeah, I would say in a big data space, you should know the basics, all the fundamentals, because you never know how the next twist an interview will take. So say you should know like your SQL, you should know. I would say for big data, you should know Python or R, and Hadoop, Spark, Hive. Those are also important. I would say machine learning basics is like really good. I mean, it'd be nice to have ice cream after a plate of jollof rice, basically, I would say. So yeah, machine learning basics will be good also. And it largely depends on the organization you work with or even the team. You'll probably be using a tool that's really new and which you have to catch up on very quickly. So yeah.
Okay, so it sounds to me like a lot of technical skills depending on what role you're going into and definitely your ability to adapt and learn quickly. Ngozi, is there anything that you'd like to add to that? I know your role is slightly different.
Yeah, so I'm in IT infrastructure, so no programming, no coding, none of that. I would say on my team, like what really stands out the most is people skills, because we are pretty much the liaison between the rest of infrastructure IT and our end users being every other person that works at my firm. right? So being able to talk to the users, being able to understand what the other teams are doing, and make sure that we're always in a good spot to kind of pass information across, and that users are being able to optimize all of the IT infrastructure that we are providing them is like the top thing for us. A lot of the tools that I work with now, I learned on the job, because I don't really think that master's programs that teach you how to do SCCM. Those are like always specific things that you kind of learn on your own. You go out to get the training for them. So what we tend to look at more for is people who just understand IT infrastructure in general, understand how the different parts play together, and are able to communicate and have good people skills.
Awesome. So Tega, you're in big data. Babatunde, sounds like you're like in core software engineering, and Ngozi end user support. So what are the opportunities available to internationals? Because all of this all sound kind of different depending on what you want to do. So what are the opportunities available in general in the tech industry to internationals? Ngozi, you can go.
I think there are lots of opportunities, and it really depends on what you enjoy. I, for one, I didn't know about the opportunities in infrastructure IT until I got my internship, and then I saw like this whole other side of IT, because the part that's popularized is software engineering, which is a huge part, and I think that is the biggest part. But if you maybe don't like talking to people, you just like looking at databases and stuff, you can just work on a database team, or you can be on a storage team, or you can be in operations. So there are like so many other sides of IT. So I think just to like shed light on that, it really depends on what you enjoy. If you find that you like a certain niche, it's just getting trained in that niche, right? Make sure you have the right tools to use, make sure you get the right certifications to show that you know these things, and then you can go like, there's a lot available to you. There's support, there's the back end, there are the developers, there are business analysts. So IT is actually really broad, and it really just depends on what you enjoy.
Anything that you like to add, Tega, Babatunde?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ngozi. And I think in addition to all of what you said, of course, I can tell you about software engineering, that's one thing. I actually used to be a big data guy too, worked with all of the tools that you mentioned, Tega.
Mm-hmm.
But then apart from that also, you could also be a PM. So a program manager or a product manager, for example, you could actually do that as well. You could actually work as a PMM, which is a product marketing manager. Those are roles that are actually available to international students as well. I don't think any role in tech is actually off, it's closed away for international students, because most techies are or tech companies are very open to the idea of having international students come work for them. And they know for a fact that like most of the people that are coming are international, except for some roles. And those roles are not, they're not the very, well, now that I think about it, like some roles may be closed off, like the one that I actually applied at Intel, and then they just didn't want to take me. But then I feel like there are so many other roles that you could actually take, like a PM, as a SUI, as someone who is actually even like a developer relations person who actually is ensuring that like other developers who are trying to use the APIs that you build, they have access to that. So there are so many roles that you could actually take on as an international student. Tega.
I would say anything ranging from data scientist, engineer, data architect, data infrastructure architect. It's a bunch of opportunities out there. And something else people don't really mention, like the DevOps. You could start with certifications like AWS and take that in Nigeria, which is like open. There are like a bunch of resources online. So yeah, there's opportunities you can get into.
Yeah.
Thanks for shedding light on that. I'm just going to back up a little actually. Are there specific skills that you learned from your master's program in particular? Because it sounds like you all learned it on your own, you got certifications on your own. So are there things that your master's actually helped you with?
Yeah, it helped me to network.
Okay. Made all that money to network?
Wow.
Well, it helped me to network. I learned the technology. I learned so many things really quickly, like how to ask questions, how to leverage the resources you're given to like move to the next step. It for me, my master's program was more like a platform, like a stepping stone to the next best thing. So because I got in and I did telecoms and computer systems, but I ended up doing software engineering, which is quite different if you know. So making that switch during a master's program is not the easiest because you're learning a bunch of stuff in class and you're trying to like ramp up quickly to go do something else. So it's really a confusing state to be in, and you have to like. I got a scholarship in school, so I had to like give my best to that also. So I was like pulled from every direction at once. Yeah. So.
And was there anything that you learned from your master's program that helped?
At my current job, no, but I do agree with Tega in that I feel like your master's program is like a good segue into corporate America, because you're coming from a different culture. Work life in Nigeria is different. Schooling in Nigeria is a little different too. But your master's program really introduces you into, taking responsibility for things, always looking out for information, learning how to network, learning how to approach people, skills that you may have gained in Nigeria and you may have not. But it gives you that like nice segue, and then you get things like an internship where you have the job, but just with a little less stress, right? Where you can actually just kind of fit your way into an organization and learn new things, and then kind of see where you really fit and what you'd like to do. So like a master's program would give that to you. What you learn in school, I mean, it's great. It keeps your mind sharp. You might end up using it at work, you may not, but I still think it's a good segue into corporate America for sure.
Correct.
Babatunde, can you like to add on to that?
Oh yeah, sure. I totally agree with everyone. My experience was also very interesting because I got a job. So I got a scholarship, but I also needed a job. And fortunately, I got a job with the IT department of the school. And so I was the technical lead for building solutions for my school. And so learning that was it was quite easy for me to take lead when I needed to, when the opportunity came. But then apart from that also, I was in class learning Perl and writing Perl programs. And then on my job, I was writing Java and writing CSS and JavaScript. And so that definitely expanded me, made me much more robust in the way I thought about technologies. So now if I have to like write Dart in the morning, and write Python in the afternoon, and then write Scala in the night, like I don't have to worry about that because I can context switch as fast as possible. So that's one thing that I think my master's program actually afforded me. In addition to what everybody said.
Only you Python, Scala, Java, C++, everything. And it's interesting because you're not from a tech background. So actually tell us how you made that switch from a non-tech background into being so technical and doing software engineering at Twitter.
So that's a very good question. So it was not a very interesting switch because I wanted to be a medical doctor. We're all Nigerians, so it's either you're a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. And I think I had failed my Nigerian parents at some point in time. And then I redeemed myself by being an engineer. So how I was able to make that switch was by reading books. I think if you want to survive as someone in the tech industry, you must read and learn because the tech you used 2 years ago is going to be obsolete in the next 5 years. I remember having to write micro edition of Java at some point in time, and then no one uses ME anymore. Like Java ME is not something that you use. The very first programming language I learned when I was like playing with it was Visual Basic. I don't even think people talk about that anymore, unless you're working with some legacy systems or so. So you need to constantly have to like, reinvent yourself and learn something new. And so being in a place where I have to always learn and read and understand things is something that gives me joy. And so that wasn't really hard. But I know that one of the things that forced me into learning much more was because of the fact that I didn't come from a very wonderful background, like came from a very humble one. And so, and I needed to like move faster. So maybe there were so many things that were chasing me, quote unquote. And so I needed to like work hard and then do all the things I needed to do. So that definitely helped. But then taking certifications was very helpful. Like even when you learn, you need to validate the things you learn through some certifications, through having to write a program and then making sure that it can work and then see that it works. And, all of those very interesting things. Just dabble into so many things, but eventually you have to narrow into what you need to learn, so that you can be proficient at one thing, and then other things will become very easy for you. Yeah, that's me.
How did you go about narrowing into what you want to learn?
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. So I had a mentor at Twitter. So one thing that big organizations afford you is that they give you people who have a broad range of experiences. And at the time, I was like someone who was writing Java, enterprise edition of Java, and then I was also writing so many interesting things. I went into Android, and I said I wanted to write Android, and I asked this person. I said, he's now a senior staff software engineer at Twitter, and then I asked him, I said, what exactly do you do? And then he told me, he said, I need to pick one for now, like let people know you for one thing. And that was very helpful because narrowing on one actually helped me to understand things. Now it is very easy for me to pick up anything at all if I have to, because in the real sense of it, people repeat themselves. Like the framework that you're using right now is more like a repetition of another framework in itself. I mean, they have different, if you narrow into them, you get to see that like, oh yeah, one is actually way better than the other. But then they all have the same concept. So it is very easy once you gain mastery of one, it's very easy for you to be able to move to other ones. And so that was that was what helped me, I think, being able to like be in a place where you can narrow on one, be very good at it, because if you move from one end to the other, you still have to write integration tests, you still have to write tests, or any of such things. If you move from one to the other, you still have to like build on an architecture that makes sense. So all of those things are still things that you can borrow and learn as you move forward, or delve into other areas. So that's possibly one of the things that really helped.
Tega or Ngozi, anything you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, reading a lot really helped me. What I did, I worked forwards to work backwards. So I found companies that were sponsoring and just sponsoring the work visa, and looked at disciplines they were offering. So then I picked the common technology that's common to both of all of them, and started learning those technologies. Then work backwards to see how I can like hone my skills and make myself better at those technologies. Another thing that helped was like independent projects. So picking a project from like GitHub, and of course Stack Overflow always helps. Use all of those resources, and I would say learn your data structures and algorithms, know the basics, know why someone is using a particular algorithm to the other, why are they choosing to use A method as opposed to B, or why is this person using this A technology as opposed to B technology? Why is it efficient for this project as opposed to that project, And make a portfolio, make a GitHub portfolio. Like if you're into UI, UX, you should make something that looks nice, that moves around on your page. If you're into like data, you should make some kind of analysis, something that precedes you before you get there. So you're speaking to an interviewer and you're like, okay, that's my portfolio. This is what I worked on. So he or she has something to start with. So it's like your first line of defense, and
yeah.
What constitutes in your portfolio are like a bunch of projects you got from GitHub. So GitHub is already like the jam question and answer there for you already. So, you're already going through it. You can see the answers, you see the questions, you're tweaking it to fit whatever descriptions or whatever thing you're trying to build. It's all there. So that really helped me.
I love that, working backwards and having something that precedes you. It's all about, I can write good code and all that. Can you show me that? And so I really like that approach. Ngozi, anything you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, just really concurring with what they've said. I think continuous learning has been like the same thing across, right? Like you have to keep learning. I was very open when I was in school because I didn't really have a specific part of tech that I wanted to specialize in per se. I'm still pretty open, truly. But back then, I was just really trying to learn everything. I was like, after classes, I would go online, try some Python, try some Tableau, just anything, add more to your resume so that you can actually learn and these things. I would say I narrowed it down a bit after my internship because I got introduced to PowerShell while I interned, and I really liked it, and I kind of picked that up. So I would say I put more focus on that, especially like the first year when I started working. But yeah, I think just continuous learning. Like you find something, like Babatunde said, you have to find one thing that you're kind of really good at, right? And to Tega's point, to have a way to have that precede you, having like a GitHub account or anything, is how you show the interviewer. Like I might not have the work experience, but this is how I can prove to you that I have been learning on my own. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for that. I'm going to switch gears a little. Now that you're in the industry, what are some challenges that you faced? Ngozi.
I think one challenge that I face personally is kind of losing steam, because once you get the job, you're kind of doing okay. It's easy to kind of like chill back and relax and like, oh, now I got this. But to keep pushing yourself, because you should be as hungry as your final semester in school. You need to keep learning, keep working, keep taking trainings, trying to do more at work, because it's your career, right? At the end of the day, regardless of where you work, it's your career, and you have to keep building it and pushing it. I'm trying to think anything that's really work specific. Nothing major. I would say my internship helped a bit in getting me introduced to the culture, especially since I came back to the same firm. So I was already used to the culture at the place. I was kind of used to the people. So I didn't have any real like pushback or challenge there. It was just more focusing on working on myself.
Definitely agree on losing steam on that. Tega, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, for me, getting the foot in the door was great. I worked my ass off to make sure my internship paid off to, full-time role. But then, boom, you're in, and okay, here's your laptop, start working. Then someone comes and says some algorithm you've never heard, and you start feeling like a fraud. You start feeling like, you get the whole imposter syndrome. Like, can I really do this stuff? Then you go online and see like 200 lines of code somebody wrote for this thing. And you're wondering like, how can I navigate? How do I even what do I have to bring to the table? So that's when I realized, okay, I needed to do a boot camp. I needed to speed up. So I did a boot camp for about 6 months. It gave me a lot of the skills I needed. And so I started speaking the lingo. I started understanding what people would talk about, that things that would normally just go over my head, So I got that. That was like a good stepping stone. With that, I could like, you don't really know what you want to learn, or you don't really know the right answers to ask. So doing the boot camp like gave me an overview. Okay, so this is how I can do it. This is the right way to push code to GitHub, I would say, and sometimes even asking the dumb questions will give you answers to questions you haven't even asked, so I would say like all of this in total helped me put me in a good place.
What boot camp did you do?
So it's UC Berkeley. I did data analytics for 6 months about.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was like, I think 3 times a week in depth. So yeah, I was doing that constantly. I need help.
Did you have to pay for the boot camp?
Yeah, I did. One of the sacrifices you make as an international candidate, like anything that just makes you look good, you can't afford to fail.
Yeah. Babatunde, anything you'd like to add onto that?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that Tega said. You come in and then they give you one small part of your code in as an intern, and then you work on it. I mean, I remember having to live on Red Bulls back then. And so, you do so well, and then you work so hard, and then they give you this job, and then you come in and you're like, I don't know what's going on, because what you see as an intern is this, and then they give this one thing, and then you're like, okay, now I am in it. I remember having to and I was learning a new language then. Scala was a new language. I didn't understand it. Like, I just did not in any way. And people would just write code, and then I'll be code pairing with someone, and the person is just like 10 times ahead of me. And I'm like, I still don't understand what you wrote like in the very first line. And the person is like, and you can't waste time, you know. So I spent many hours in the office. Sometimes I would leave my office around 10 p.m. and then come back home. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't good enough. So those are the kind of challenges that you possibly face as a person. And then apart from that also, and as a junior engineer, you possibly just learn about having to write codes, and that's what you have to work with and grapple with. But then as you become more senior, you have to like design systems that are very reliable, that like, and that's very big companies. You don't, I mean, you possibly you may be processing, oh, sorry, systems that you developed were systems that process maybe like 2,000 requests per second or something like that, or 2,000 is even a lot, like 2,000 requests per hour or so. But then in a place like this, you possibly are designing systems that actually have to handle close to like 50,000 requests per second. Those definitely require, and you require very high latency. I remember the very first job, first project I got, which was something that was very important. Like we're making close to like $30 million on that. And my manager said, don't mess this up. And I was like, oh, wow. It was quite interesting because the people that were that were attached to that project were Yahoo, Japan, and Google. And so you understand how very important that was. And I knew that, yes, I didn't need to mess this up. So you face such challenges, but then eventually you get used to it. They're like, okay, yeah, it becomes a normal thing eventually. They're like, yeah, you need to work on something that will definitely have to make millions of dollars, and then you don't have to mess it up. Go through the process, but then eventually you get used to it. I think, yeah.
You get used to the feeling of drowning all the time.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I felt like I would hear H1B somewhere here. So I think everybody's good on the H1B front. But as we all know, very recently, a ban was passed. So how do you think that would affect the tech industry? And this is the last question in this session. Tega.
It would affect it in adverse ways for people that are not in the US yet. You know, so if you're still on a H1B visa and you need to renew, so it then becomes like a little bit difficult. But we're hoping it's passed through, I think December, or they said fall, so I don't really know if it goes past then. So we're hoping, we're hoping there's a switch and something changes. Currently, it seems like it doesn't affect people in the US that already have the H1B or are looking to renew, you know. But for new entries, you probably wouldn't be able to get in presently. But hopefully this will change in the nearest future. You know.
Fingers crossed. Anything that you guys would like to add on? Ngozi or Babatunde?
Yeah, I wanted to like go back a little bit. I know we didn't mention H1B before, but that was definitely like a part. I got my H1B my third year. So I prayed, I fasted, I said, Jesus, what is this? What's going on? So I mean, definitely that stress on top of, you know, just having a full-time job is definitely there. Like you're looking at all your different options. It's like, God, am I going back to Nigeria? Wow. And you start looking at all your different opportunities. So that's definitely there. Thankfully, I have it now and I'm in the US. So, you know, like Tega said, we're not as directly affected by the new ban, but we'll kind of see how the policies change, right? Staying aware is good. Most companies have their own lawyers that, you know, would work with their employees and kind of keep informed on what's going on. And feel free to talk to your, you know, HR department or your lawyers if you have that one-on-one communication with them, to just make sure you're staying informed and know what your options are. Always do what's best for you at the end of the day, right? So if the H1B route is looking funky, look at other options. If it's looking like it's going to keep going through, you know, keep pushing that. But yeah, fingers crossed, really. We don't know what Trump or anybody else is going to do. So we'll see what the policy leads us.
Yeah. But that's anything you like to add on?
I can't speak too much to H1B because I never got one. But I can say some of my experiences. So I got the OPT, and the OPT lasts for like 3 years. And so for someone who actually is just coming in and then, you know, you possibly can ride on OPT and be fine. I don't know exactly how long this is going to be, but like Ngozi said, as you get to do all of these things, I don't think I have the, I'm not so lucky when it comes to all of these things. I played the lottery 3 times and I didn't get it 3 times. But thankfully, I was able to get my green card from OPT into green card. So they make short
Wow.
options sometimes. And so like, so I don't know, just continue to explore as many options as you have, and then you would possibly have it. But then make it legal. That's all.
Yes.
All right. I have a question here. So do you think that, we'll see less tech companies more willing to employ people who need H-1Bs with these restrictions? Do you think that would really affect the amount of opportunities in tech industry for internationals in general?
I think the lifeblood of tech industry is international students.
Mm,
Um, I work on a team of Chinese internationals, and um, they all are affected with all of what is going on. If we ever lose them today at Twitter, we possibly will not be able to process as many ads as we ought to, and we
mm-hmm,
won't be able to make as much money as we ought to. So, in the past, I've seen tech companies actually fight these policies.
mm-hmm,
I won't be surprised when, if at any point in time there will be a lawsuit that will actually go out against this policy, such that it could be overturned.
mm-hmm,
So I am not afraid. I think that like this is not going to in any way impact anything. And this is not just me just saying things with history. So like if you possibly think about like most of the international students that we have, the Indians, the Chinese, and all of that, they will definitely
mm-hmm.
always still be the people that will be hired. So I don't think this is going to affect in any way. But fingers crossed.
Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
I agree with you, Babatunde, because there are many people that have a much more higher stake in this whole policy than
Mm-hmm.
even the common worker. So I think it would definitely change, and they will start admitting more people as time goes. So nothing to be scared about.
Okay, I
Alrighty.
also had a follow-up question. So, with respect to something that you had mentioned earlier, Babatunde, you had talked about the fact that in tech there are so many opportunities that are available to all international students. So, one thing I'd found in my experience, and maybe you could help clarify this, is there's some roles that are not necessarily open to internationals, and that what I mean is it might be in the tech industry, but they might not be willing to sponsor for some roles. So, for instance, if I come and I'm doing a communications role, or I'm doing a marketing role, or maybe a legal role, would a tech company be willing to sponsor me for that role compared to if I was coming in for a program manager or coming in for a software engineer or engineer position? So I just wanted to clarify if there are specific roles that are not really open to internationals, just for anyone who will be interested.
Yeah.
I know that I know a friend of mine who is not a techie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she studied for her MBA, got her OPT. OPT lasted for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and she was sponsored.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I know people who have such stories, and it's not necessarily like, oh, if you don't have this, you don't have that. Um, so I won't say that there are some things that are not available. I think it has to do with like your role as a person and
Mm-hmm.
how very important you are to the company.
Mm-hmm.
Most tech, I mean, people who have tech skills definitely have
Mm-hmm.
that skill that people want, and so that's the reason why they are always being sponsored. But then
Mm-hmm.
apart from that, also I've seen cases where like even if you don't have those tech skills, you possibly have an MBA, for example. I think someone is talking about
Mm-hmm.
MBA here.
Mm-hmm.
You possibly could be sponsored as well, depending on exactly the need for you in the company.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say. So,
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty. With that, we've come to the end of this section. I'll hand it over to Yewande and we'll talk about getting into the industry and job opportunities.
Yeah, thanks, Maya. So, we'll just go through some of the questions that we had received in the survey. But before we do that, let's actually just address Adeola's question. She has 2 questions in the chat. And I figured since we're all here, we might as well just address it. So our first question is, if you're interested in getting an internship or job in fintech, how do you go about that? It seems that most of the roles are geared towards undergraduates and MBAs. Do you guys know any? And Adiola, please, you can chime in here too if you need to clarify your question some more. But do you guys have any input or insight as to how someone can go about getting a job, an internship in fintech?
Tega, you work in fintech.
Yeah, like I said, getting your hands dirty with independent projects is important. Trying to network is also important. Like, you need to do the footwork. You need to be prepared before you even start like going into interviews. Show the recruiter that you can actually really do this stuff. Then, I'm always a big fan of like making a list. So you make a list of fintechs that you feel you can get into. Try to learn stuff about them. Try to learn what space they're in and what new project they're trying to get into. So you go into an interview feeling like a boss. You know so many stuff about this company. You know what their next 2-3 moves are, and your work is on point. Everything looks good. There will be no reason for you not to get a second interview. So those are the things you need to do. And talking about undergraduates, MBA, it doesn't really matter. Once your work is on point, recruiters are looking for people that can do the job, not necessarily, there are times where they look for the certifications, the degrees, but most especially they need people to do the job. Sometimes when they don't find people, they go the contractor route because they really need people to do the job. So you being there and showing that you're proficient, you can do this stuff, there'll be no reason for them not to give you that job. So, yeah.
One other thing I possibly want to say to that is this. So I think you as a person should also know the level of experience that you have and what is needed. If what is needed is what you have, please go for it. And then your skills will just dovetail into exactly what the company wants. If you think you're subpar, sometimes I feel like if you think you're not as good as what they possibly want, and it's a very honest analysis of yourself. One thing I think you should do is to go to a company that does almost exactly what you want. It might not be exactly where you want to be. So let's say, for example, you want to work at Plaid, for example, you want to work at Visa. Say, for example, it might not be, as a rule of thumb, this does not necessarily even apply to fintech. It applies to every single role that you have. If you possibly want to work at Facebook or you want to work at Google, but then you don't have the skills that they are looking for there, maybe you should work at a startup that is very close to your house, and spend your time there enjoying yourself. And enjoying yourself in such a way that like you are not even being paid for it. Like internships are very, very important. And you can see that like even on this panel, every single person that possibly got a job is because of the fact that they at one point in time were interns and they proved themselves. I don't think if I am an employer and I really want someone, if someone is able to prove themselves to me that they are actually very good, I don't think I'll tell them and say, I don't want to hire you. Even if you're not getting paid, I possibly want to pay you and say that like you're good enough to be paid, and so I'll pay you. Be embedded into a startup and then learn from there, and then improve your skills until you're so good that you can even get to the Facebook and the Google that you actually want to be. That's a very good strategy that has worked on so many occasions, and I don't think it's a bad thing to actually even try if you have to.
I want to just add on to that. If you have like specific companies, say that you're hoping to work with, I think 2 ways that you can kind of get yourself face time with such companies is one, going to places like NSB conferences where you actually get face time with the recruiters. They can actually talk to you. You can walk through your resume, kind of prove yourself at that point. Another thing that I believe helps too is most companies have schools that they like to recruit from. So if you know you want to work with, say, Bloomberg, find out where Bloomberg likes to recruit from and target that school too. Because before they start looking at any other school in their state or anywhere else, they're going to start with their specific schools that they like. So if you have specific companies like that, you kind of know what specific roles you want to go for. position yourself for it. You know, try to get into one of those schools, try to go to the conferences where you know they're at, and kind of play yourself to get that face time, because there's so much you can show on a resume, right? Sometimes if you're maybe really good at talking, you might be able to sell yourself better in person. So other avenues to actually get your foot in the door with the company.
All right, thank you everyone for sharing. So let's actually just take a couple more skills, a couple more. I was reading the chat, a couple more questions from the chat, because it seems like people are engaged. And I want to make sure that people actually like getting answers to their questions. So Adela also asked about imposter syndrome. Have you ever had to deal with it, and how did you overcome it? I know that Tega had touched on this earlier about, you know, when you first joined, having the imposter syndrome, and then you had to go sign up for a boot camp just to help you develop those skills where you felt like you could talk to your co-workers and understand what they were saying. But do you guys have any other experiences with imposter syndrome that, you know, you want to share, and how did you overcome that?
Solid question. So you need to like be in a very healthy space, a very healthy mental space, because it can really mess with your psyche. You know, you need to in your organization, in whatever small team you are in, you need to find someone that has a very good experience, that's friendly, and that kind of likes you, you know, and you try to get towards this person, more like merging yourself with success already.
To find like a mentor?
Yeah, no, say not really like a mentor, more like a friend.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have a mentor. Within Visa, we call them a buddy. So you have that person literally holds your hand and shows you what you need to do, but they're not, they're your parent, but they're not your friend, you know? So you need a friend, and you be like, hey, this guy asked me about this algorithm, or why do I have a dash in this code? I can't ask my mentor. Like, do you know why? You know, you need a friend like that. You can, you know, ask all the dumb questions. So as soon as you get that, that will help you like leverage, you know, and you also need to do your own work. Say you have a problem, right? And there's somewhere on Stack Overflow where you can solve that problem. Try to solve that problem halfway till you get like really, really stuck, and making notes of what you don't know. Because you're taking this thing over to your friend. Your friend, guess what? Your friend has his own work to do. So if you keep showing up with questions that seem like you can answer them yourself, you probably lose your friend. So I would say, 1, get a friend. 2, get a mentor. Do all the footwork on your own. All this will build your confidence. So with time, you see that you start speaking the language, you start understanding so many things, you know, in that space, and that feeling of being a fraud, of being, you know, less than what you think you should be, will start fading away, you know. So
yeah.
Thanks, Tega.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I agree with all of what you said. One thing also is that like I think once you handle one or two projects and you've done them successfully, you start feeling more confident. At first I never used to feel confident. I must tell you that. Like I felt like, and these are people who have been coding since they were like 12 or 13, and then you started coding God knows how many years ago. And so like you're like, where do I even start from? And so it's true. Like a friend of mine would say that like some people can make code bounce. Like they write code and then you're like, Jesus Christ, how did this person write this? Like it's so elegantly written, and you're like, Jesus, what is this? And so you're like, I don't know what's going on. But then eventually you start getting used to it. And some people write code in a way that, like, I think is just a very good way. Like, think of coding or any other thing that you possibly have as like, the way Wole Soyinka writes his book is very different from the way Chimamanda writes a book. And they are both very wonderful people. Don't try to be a Wole when you could be Chimamanda. I don't know if that makes sense. What I want to say is that like someone is writing something really great or doing something really awesome. You should be very comfortable in you doing you, but make sure it is just as excellent as the other person. I don't know if that makes sense. And that's exactly what I can say to follow what's going on. Like, just be excellent in the things that you do. And that's the bar.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. It's,
yeah,
I was just going to add on and say,
like, go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Something I was going to add on to that. I think the feeling of imposter syndrome is not unique to the tech space. Like, even just getting a regular job, especially from like you're from Nigeria, maybe you schooled in Nigeria, like me from my small, town, only even if you're from Lagos, even from my small Lagos in Nigeria here, and I'm trying to do this job, am I really the best person? I think one thing that helped me is remembering that there's something they saw in you during your interview that made them choose you. And so while you might not have all the skills that you need on the first day, they trust in your ability to learn. They trust in your ability to do the work. So, that's a good place to start from. There's something that they saw in me, and just, showing that thing every day on your job. That's all I'll add on to that.
Yeah, what I
want
you
to add on. Okay. Go ahead, Yewande.
Nobody wants to add on. What I was going to say was really, I really just echo with what Babatunde said. It's knowing yourself and being confident about who you are, because you and the other person, you and whoever it is that you work with or whoever it is that you look up to, you're not the same person. You don't have the same background. You didn't study in the same school. You don't have the same skill sets, right? So it's understanding what you bring to the table. And like Moyo said, knowing that they hired you for a reason, and on having that self-awareness to know that maybe I need to brush up on certain skills, and doing what you need to do to build up on those skills, but also understanding that you can never be that other person. So don't ever, I feel like imposter syndrome comes with like comparison. You're looking at somebody else and thinking, oh, why they're so much better than I am. Just understanding the fact that you are who you are for a reason, and just owning that and be confident in that. So that's all I'll say. Ngozi, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I totally agree with what everyone has said. And imposter syndrome, really, it's a state of mind. And just one other thing I'll say is having a support group, right? Having people that are there to encourage you, even outside of work. So I'll say I was very lucky in that I have like a core group of friends that we've kind of been on the same trajectory together, right? We all like got our masters at the same time, got our internships, got our jobs. So, some days too, just to sit back with those same people and be like, oh, more, if you see what's happening for work, and just like, let your friends gas you up a little bit, remind you of, what you've been through and how you've done this and done that, and you're supposed to be where you are. So, attack it from that personal side too, because your confidence in other aspects of your life will affect your confidence at work. And then, you feel bad when you feel like you're an imposter too, when you feel like you don't quite have the knowledge that you need to. And that's what training is there for. I know Tega had to pay for his, but a lot of companies too would happily, pay for you to go get trained. They know that there is a gap between where you are and where they want you to be. So talk to your manager, talk to your teammates, try to get trained, up your level, up your skill level. And once you have 1 or 2 successful projects under your belt, it's like, I got this. Like now you feel more confident when walking through the door. So please.
All right, thanks everyone. Adela, I hope that really answers your question about how to deal with imposter syndrome. I'll move on to the next question from Fola. He says, apart from mastery of data structures and algorithms, what else can give you an edge at coding interviews? So for the software engineers and big data engineers in the house.
What can give you an edge? Practice. If I'm going to get a new job today, say for example, today is a place I don't want to work at anymore, and then I want to work at maybe cruise.ai or something. What I would do personally, and I'm just going to tell you what I would do, maybe you can learn from that, would be I would possibly take another 3 months of my life and spend on practicing interviews, such that within 15 minutes of being like, because those interviews are interviews where like within 15 minutes, they want you to be able to answer those questions. Maybe not 15, maybe 45. I will practice in such a way that like, I will possibly even call Tega and say, Tega, you're my friend. You live in Palo Alto. Please come and help me to grade my work. So Tega is the one sitting down somewhere, and then I am on a whiteboard, and then I'm writing that code so that it can grade me and help me learn. So that's exactly what I'll do. And so one thing I would say is that I should practice and practice and practice. But then one thing about interviews also is that don't go into leetscode.com. Yes, I totally agree. Don't go there and then go to a place and then start writing on the board without explaining what you're saying, because you're losing the person. Interviewers are people like you who possibly they are human. They know what you're going through as a person, and so what they want to do is to help you out. And so when you're thinking about a solution and then what you're using is, an algorithm that the ON is maybe n squared, and they feel like you could do this in log n, and then you are going with the n squared and then you just start writing, you've wasted your time. Maybe you spent like 42 minutes in solving that problem, and then they just go about and then say, oh yeah, you just wasted my time. What you want to do is to ask questions and have a very good understanding of what you're being asked before you even start solving those problems. So spend the first 5 minutes asking all the questions and, edge cases that you want to have. And then you can then begin to improve the solutions that you have. Because one thing about it is that people want to work with you. They want to see how it feels to work with you to solve a problem. Yeah, that's it. Tega,
right.
more things.
Yeah, I would say a lot of practice, as Babatunde said, and doing lead code. You could do the easy to the hard questions. Lead code offers different technology stack. So if you want to do SQL for lead code, or if it's Python, Java, C++, you can solve practically the same question with the different stacks. And I would say, when you start doing whiteboarding, which is like writing your code on the whiteboard, or pseudocode, as you say, it's good for you to speak up. Like, okay, why am I using this solution? Why am I using, depth, breadth, to do a search? Why am I using trees? Why am I using this? Why binary? So you speaking up, they'll be like, no, this is not what I asked you. I asked you XYZ, that clarifies, or it's more like he's giving you more expo, he's giving you more insight to what you need to solve, But when you're in your own head, like, okay, this is how I solve it. Oh man, I'm making a mistake here. You're not saying everything is internalized. No one knows what you're doing. The only thing they see is what you have on the board. So whiteboarding, you're speaking out, oh, I want to use this. This is how I'm going to solve this problem. This is how, and your peers can also help you bridge that gap. So you're speaking to someone that's really you're familiar with, someone you've shared a meal with, someone that's really close to you. You're solving a problem. You're even solving this problem in pidgin English. You understand this person very well, and he's like, "Oh, guy, you don't mess up. This is nowhere. Do this one first. I think you should do this. So that makes it a little bit more comfortable, and a bunch of resources you can use online also, as well. Stack Overflow is one, and there's one I can't remember. I think Interview Cake. So that also helps a lot. Yeah, the last I remember, you can see people. You can book somebody's time to sign up for a whiteboarding session.
Okay. Thanks, Tega. Would you mind, just checking for those resources, and you could always share them with us afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Sure. But I know you talked about Leak Code, you talked about Stack Overflow, you talked about Interview Cake. So these are some resources that I had noted down. But thank you so much. It sounds like the
one of the book I think that you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's a book that I just posted on there. It's a book that isn't more than, I don't know, I think you can even download the PDF version. But it's called Cracking the Coding Interview. That is a good book that you should read. The interview questions that possibly will come out may not be exactly what is in there, but then they give you a very good understanding of how to even think through, some questions, because some people will tell you and say, use an array as a stack, and you're like, what's going on here? So understanding exactly what people are going to ask you and changes the way you think about these programs, and then you can solve problems from that.
Okay. Thank you. So it sounds at least the key things are, understanding what it is that you want to do, and then making sure you practice. And like Tega has really emphasized, having friends who can support you, friends who can, that can kind of be a sounding board for you as you practice and go through your training. I think that's actually relevant across the board. Another question here is, someone who asked that, is there any hope for someone who doesn't have strong programming skills to be trained while studying? Or should one have solid programming skills before he or she can get employment? So pretty much, do you need programming skills to get a job? Like, is that is it necessary to have that foundation of programming skills, or is that something that you would get in school, or what are your recommendations?
To get a tech job or just in,
it sounds like a tech job. So if you're talking about programming skills, my guess is it's for a tech job.
So if you don't want to code, right, and you want to have a tech job, I would suggest you go the DevOps route. So you start looking at certifications like AWS. You probably want to do your CCNA first to get a full understanding of how packets are being routed over the internet, which is also still very important in companies like Twitter that use a lot of microservices. You should understand how these things work you should understand how the web works. From when you type in www.google.com, you should know what happens afterwards. You should know all of that stuff. So the AWS helps you put you in a good place. The CCNA helps before that. And
sorry, Tega, to cut you short. Just for those of us who might not be too familiar, can you just give us a brief overview of what DevOps is?
Okay, so DevOps is like CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous flow. So say, for instance, a programmer writes his code and all of that stuff, right? You have to deploy. The programmer doesn't deploy into production. So basically, you like the watchdog that deploys whatever the programmer has written into production. You need to make sure like the code is being tested, everything, it doesn't break anything, and you're pushing it seamlessly into production. In production, what I mean by production, say for instance, you have the Instagram app on your phone, and you wake up in the morning and you see that, oh, Instagram has been updated, and now there's a new feature called what do you call that? Bloom, was it Blast? The one that, I think, Boomerang.
Oh,
so it wasn't there before, the night before, but now you have it there. You're wondering, how did this thing, and it updated and you don't know how it did update. So the programmer wrote the code. The DevOps guys make sure that it was pushed into production and pushed as an update to everybody's phone seamlessly. And you wake up, you don't have to restart your phone or do anything. It just comes automatically. So that's what the DevOps engineer does. And in DevOps, they have different fields. It's like, it's a huge lake. So you have DevOps AI, you have DevOps operations, you have, so that's a field you can go into if you don't really have so much coding experience, and you don't really want to code so much.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Ngozi and Babatunde, did you have anything to add to that? For anyone who doesn't have strong programming skills, what are some things they need to consider if they need to get employment in the industry?
Well, some of us are not as creative as some other people. Like I don't know how to think about design, for example. Like I've, since the days of writing HTML and CSS, I hated it. I just don't like it. But some people actually have such things where they are very creative. They know exactly what the customer would want. Like, oh, this is exactly where you place the widget. Don't place it there, place it over there, and all of that. The work of such people are product managers. Like, they are product managing what is going on. And then apart from that, also, you as a product manager are not just thinking about how it is good for the user, but also you're thinking about how, you can make money, or you can, do some things about, like, you are the lifeblood of that product in itself. Like, you're thinking about how it is going to be good, how people can make money out of it, how it is going to be very presentable and all of that. So that's the work of a product manager. And I think very strongly that, like, if you don't have some people who actually have some coding skills are product managers, but then once they are tired of writing codes, they possibly segue into being PMs. And then I've seen people who actually don't even know how to write codes at all, and then they just become PMs. And so what you're doing is that, in tech, we call such people mini CEOs. So you are the mini CEO of that same very simple product that you have. So like you said, there is possibly a product manager for like Boomerang at Instagram who is responsible for ensuring that Boomerang is working. And so you might be that person who is actually ensuring that like things are working fine and all of that. So that's one thing that you could also do, in addition to like, you know, all of what Tega said.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I wanted to say, say, like he mentioned, you're CEO of that small project, right? So being a CEO of that project, at the end of the year, you get a budget. And that your budget, you handle your own people like it's your own company. So with your budget, you'd be like, okay, how do I manage this? Do I want to buy more servers? Do we need to expand in this direction? Do I need to hire more people? You look at your headcount. You look at, you practically managing all of that headspace. And an MBA will be great for that, So you know how to manage all your people. You know who to hire. So you see a very smart guy, right? And you're trying to hire him. But at the end of the day, he didn't pass the behavioral interview. It's like he's really smart. He's really book smart. He knows what he's doing. He didn't pass the behavioral interview. It's like bringing the bad egg into your whole pack. He can spoil the bond your team already has. Say, for instance, you're trying to hire this guy and you're thinking, can I bring this guy to my home during Thanksgiving to come spend time with my family? The answer is no, they're not hiring you. So you need to be able to fit well into the whole team. And it's what the PM does. So that's another role that doesn't require coding.
Yeah. And I was going to say, there is infrastructure IT too, that would have you be in tech but not have to write code. You can be a system administrator, focus on any of the basic OS, right? The main ones. It can be Windows, Unix, Mac OS, depending on what type of shop your company runs. Or you can be focused in telecommunication engineering, like there's a team at each of the companies, right, that would manage how Zoom works, getting that administrative license, making sure everything works correctly. So if you enjoy stuff like that, that's another opportunity, or like different routes that you can go. So again, depends on what you enjoy. Give yourself avenues to actually test out different things and kind of see where you fit in. But there are things you can do in tech that don't require coding.
All right.
One last addition. There's a branch of cybersecurity that doesn't require code. So all you have to do is, I can't remember it particularly, but it's called tech governance. You just have to know, like, what are the requirements to build a data center in Palo Alto? What's the best location? How can I put a storage unit here? Is it accessible? Do we have enough power to serve? You're the one thinking and doing all these things, and that's a whole profession.
Information security, IT compliance.
Yeah,
so many
different routes.
Yeah. Shameless plug here. We are going to have a session on non-tech roles in tech. So if you're interested in that, look out for our flyer.
So yeah, great points. We've actually covered more roles than I actually knew were possible, like infrastructure IT. I didn't really think of IT compliance, that tech governance I didn't know about. So those are all very relevant fields. There was a question that we had received about IT certification. So I want to segue into that question. How relevant do you think are IT certifications, especially with respect to getting a job? So I'm in school, and I see there's a lot of people who are still in school, and I suffer from the same thing as well. I feel like for me to get a job, I need to get a certification. However, I'm not sure what certification I need to get. And I also understand that from what you guys have said, IT is so broad. So with software engineering, for instance, you don't necessarily need a certification. So with your experience in the industry, how relevant do you see that IT certifications are, and for what specific fields would they be really relevant?
Answer is
Tega, you can go first.
Answer is it depends. So if you're trying to go get the tech governance role and all of that, I would say CISSP is important for you. If you're trying to do, say, just networking, you should go into CCNA, the whole CCNA track up to CCIE. If you're trying to just do, what's the other one?
DevOps. What about DevOps?
Yeah. Thank you. If you're trying to do DevOps, you should be looking at AWS. CCNA will also be important to you. So that's like a starting point for those careers that don't require a lot of coding.
What about like Azure and GCP? Are those relevant for DevOps, or are they more like cloud engineering specific?
Yes, they're cloud specific. So it really depends on where, like I said, you're working forward to work backwards. You should know what you want. You should know how relevant those certifications will be, to whatever you're trying to do. Then work backwards to try to get certifications and all the necessary tools you need. Then it's all there in the job description. They're like, we want someone that has this, that, AWS, this, that. This is more important. They tell you in the job description. So you use that, and work backwards. Get those certifications, get what they describe there, and come back, feeling really prepared.
I'll add to that. I have so certifications is just to prove to me that you're good, or that you know what you're doing. Sometimes it's not. you could be certified, but you're not good at what you do. And that is the truth, to be honest. Like, someone could say, I have MBA from Wharton, but then they're just not as good as they're supposed to be. Someone could say that they are medical doctors are from one particular wonderful school, and then they kill people from the injections that they give. So I'm just saying that, like, all those things do not matter. I mean, your certifications actually matter. It's just to prove. But the way I would say is that if I see someone who does not have certifications, but they are good at what they do, I will possibly want to talk to that person than to hire someone who has a certificate. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue them. I stopped writing certifications a long time ago because it just doesn't help me to get to where I want to get to. But it is also a way that, like, so my approach to life, and I'm not saying I'm imposing it on anyone. I'm saying that, like, my approach to life is that I would go ahead and learn all the things I need to learn. And then if I need a certification at that point in time to be able to prove to someone, then I would do it. But then the very first thing is to understand the meat behind it. If you understand it, no one can, at any point in time, even, I don't know, throw you off. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, you are grounded in the things that you want to do. Your certification is just a way to show. It's paper, let them have it. But then you're good at what you do. And I think if there's anything that you want to do, strive for learning and knowing those things. And your certification is just a way to, like, oh, yeah, I have that. If that is what is going to help you know that I'm good, this is it. Whatever. So,
I think with the certification, like, what I was assuming was that you will actually go in and learn the technologies those certifications are providing, as opposed to like paying someone to. So if you don't learn the underlying technologies or whatever the certification has taught, there's no way. I'm sorry, there's no way you'll be able to get in. If you just thinking like, okay, I will just pass AWS, CISSP, and CCNA to CCIE. I'll pay for someone to do it for me, and you feel like you get in. No, because this is real life. You'll be given these things to do, and if you can't do it, I'm sorry, like, you'll be looking at the door really quickly. I can assure you that. So
in the other direction.
So really knowing the meat behind the certification is important. The certification is just the cream on top of it.
I love that. It's the cream. It's just the cherry on top.
Exactly.
Because did you have anything to add? I know that in your particular field, there are certain certifications that are required or that are helpful.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think Tega already mentioned it. There's some roles that require certain certificates. So if you're going for a role like that, you definitely need them. I see certificates more as just a way to get your foot in the door, right? You either have to have job experience that's standing behind you, or you have a portfolio to say you're like a software engineer, you have like a badass GitHub account or HackerRank account that recruiters can go to and see what you've done, or you're going to have certificates. I think the main thing is just don't have an empty resume, right? Like, I learned that real quick. I see it with other people. No one wants to talk to an empty resume. So if you're like fresh out of school, you don't have the work experience, you're going like a CCNA route, then absolutely get CCNA. So that way you can actually get to talk to somebody, and you definitely need to know the technology because you are going to be asked questions about it and you're going to have to work with this technology. So it kind of depends. Like Tega said, it depends on what you're going for, what you have behind you. If you have nothing else, if you're fresh out of school, no experience, nothing, try to amp up what you can and get your foot in the door.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. There's one question from Aisha in the chat. She says, what has been your experiences with sponsors or advocates, people who advocate for you even when you're not in the room? And how important do you think they are for career growth? So with your different companies, do you have any sponsors, or what has been your experience and how do you see that they've helped you advance in your career?
Yeah, Aisha, good to see you here. Thanks for coming. Sponsors are very important, I think. Mentorship is, so there are two different things. If someone is just hearing this for the very first time, you have a mentor, and a mentor is just someone who helps you to learn the basic skills that you need to learn. And then, it's more like the rabbi who is helping someone who is learning. But then a sponsor is someone who is actually standing for you and saying that, hey, this person must be here. This person is very good enough to be here. The way to get sponsors is not as easy as to get mentors. Mentors are like people who can teach you and all of that. To get a sponsor, it means that person is giving they are spending their social currency of some sort to pull you up. And so it's people are always very careful before they spend such things, so that they don't run into trouble. But the way to do it is to ensure that you possibly want to set up a one-on-one with someone, be under their tutelage of some sorts, and in that process, prove yourself to them that you're good enough. When the time comes when there's a need for a project, you possibly, and look for that person who is not, so everybody wants to be, I won't lie to you, people want to be people, a couple of people are very happy, mentoring you, ensuring that they are in your life, they can groom you and all of that. If you can show to such people, not people who are just immediate. So if you are a mid-level engineer, then you're talking to a senior software engineer, the person may help you, but not so much. You possibly want to talk to a director of engineering, or you want to talk to the VP of engineering, and that's the person you want to have as someone who is looking at you. And so talk to such person, let them know exactly what you're working on, have them as mentors, and then eventually it slowly begins to fade from mentorship into sponsorship, where such a person sees exactly what you can do and you're capable of, and you've been able to prove or build your reputation to a very great extent. And then when the time comes for a major project that needs to happen, such a person is not very shy of saying, oh, I know Aisha, or I know Tega, or I know someone else who actually can can do this. And so that person is also always saying that you can do this, and then they can speak for you, in the room when you're not there. I don't know if people have other experiences, but that's a very good one.
Tega, Ngozi, anything from you guys?
I haven't had an experience with a sponsor. I have had a mentor, and that was very helpful while I was learning PowerShell. Someone that just and I could go to with my questions and kind of point me in the right direction, especially when you don't know what you don't know. You need someone who, understands the system or the tool properly more than you do. Sponsorship sounds great, and I think that would depend on the culture at your firm. I don't know that it's a big thing at my firm. That's probably why I've never come across it. But yeah, I think as you get into a company or a firm, you see the culture, and if that's an opportunity that's open to you, definitely do your best to tap into that.
Yeah, I didn't really have a sponsor, so what I had were peer mentors. I would have a problem and be like, hey, do you know this? Have you dealt with this before? Then I'm asking the next person and the next person. So your network needs to be for me, my network needs to be strong, because I don't have that one mentor or sponsor that's like, hey, Tega, I'm looking out for you. This is how you should navigate. So most of what I'm doing is trying to understand where I'll go to. So I normally sit down for one-on-ones with myself quarterly, annually, hey, how am I doing? Am I looking good? I'm in Tega's country, and how am I managing Tega's country? Is my finances doing well? What's the plan for 5 years? Am I moving in the right direction or no? you know. So what is holding me back? Why, you know, I do that talk with myself. So that helps, like, you know, you can't be fake with yourself. It's real life. You're telling yourself, hey, man, I think I need more money, or I need, you know, I need this as opposed to that. You're real with yourself. You're telling yourself these things, and you come out with things you need, and sort for people that could help you achieve that in the next level. So I think people that advocate for me in the room are people that have seen my work. You know, I know that, okay, he's put in the nights, he's put in real work into this. Let's see how he could, like, measure well in this other project as opposed to what he's doing now. It looks like he can deliver based on XYZ project he's completed. You know? So for me, it's my network and the quality of my work that speaks for me.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys, for sharing. Just to add on to that, I would say that, like Ngozi said, sponsorship really depends on your organization. But I would say, to find a sponsor, you really have to be, for them to be willing to sponsor and advocate for you when you're not in the room. You have to have shown them what you have to offer, and for you to start building that sponsorship relationship. So if there's someone that you have in mind, or someone that, you know, you've worked with who's at a senior level, you think can be in that position, then if you're not already on their radar, then try to get on their radar. And like Babatunde said, if that means setting up one-on-ones with them, so they know what you're interested in, and they can kind of, you know, help give you some opportunities that align with that. And again, putting in the work. They're not going to be willing to advocate for you if you don't put in the work. So put in the work and let them know that you're putting in the work. So it's a natural, it just comes naturally, where they're willing to advocate for you and willing to speak on your behalf when you're not there, and you can kind of develop that relationship. We have about 6 minutes to go, so I'm going to close out with one last question. We've talked about a lot of careers in tech. We've talked about a lot of skills. The one question I wanted to ask is, for someone who is, let's say they have the skills, they have the certifications, they've done, they might not have gone through a boot camp, but they have the base skills. How can you say that? How can they break into the industry? How can they break into tech? And how can they carve a niche for themselves in the industry? So, Tega?
Yeah, I would say independent projects and your personal portfolio. So those will, you have ample time. You know, COVID period is ample time. So you're sitting there, you have so much time to be on GitHub. Okay, I want to make an online calculator. People will use that stuff. You know, I'll just type calculator on Google, and I really want to use like a currency converter right now. And guess what? Your tool is right there. It helps. You know, for instance, there's this guy started a company in Nigeria, and all he showcases is currency exchange. I think we all know him, Aboki FX. So you just want to see what the naira is to the dollar right now, and what it is on the black market. You type in that, boom, is right there. So things like that are like important to help you. Like, it precedes you, goes before you, you know. So independent projects are important. Make your personal portfolio ready. You know, so speaking to a recruiter or speaking to somebody like, hey, this is my GitHub account. This is my page on GitHub. This is my web page. This is what it does. I've posted this app. I've done this. I've done that. And, you know, they will be interested in speaking with you more. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tega. Ngozi, Babatunde, any words? How can they break into the industry, and how can they carve a niche for themselves?
Having a body of work, because you just want to always have something that you're kind of bringing to the table. You need to have something to converse about when you do meet a recruiter. So whatever that's going to look like. For some people, it's a prior work experience. Like if people like Tega, Babatunde, they were looking for new jobs now, they're just going to say, like, look, I killed it at this other company. I can kill it at your company too. They have work experience, right? Or you might need to go take some courses, get some certifications under your belt. If you're programming or, you know, like doing data analysis and stuff like that, I really think you need to have like a portfolio. Like Tega keeps bringing up, you know, have a GitHub account, have things that you can show that you've done on your personal time that prove that you actually have the skills and not just classroom knowledge. Like you've actually worked with these things, broken something, fixed it. That's what recruiters want to see, because that's what you're going to do in the real world.
Mm. All right,
Yeah.
thanks, Ngozi.
Okay, go on.
Yeah. I think we've talked extensively how to like get to the door. I think carving a niche for yourself is something that I'll possibly talk about. And work on projects that are not ordinary. And I say that in a very interesting way. The last project I worked on at Twitter was a project where we used Kafka. And Kafka is a place where you ordinarily use it as like a boss from one end to the other. And that's exactly what it's used for. But then there's one, popularly, that's exactly what it's used for. But then what I used it for, or my design of things, was to use as a storage system. And that's something that people don't even think about when it comes to Kafka. That is something that like, I'm still going to write a blog post about it, so watch out for it. But it's quite interesting such that like people don't use Kafka for what I just described, but it is actually built with that in mind as well. And the storage system where you store things and then eventually you can write and then, read the things you want to read. So those are kind of projects that like you don't normally come by. So you want to push yourself beyond what you usually do, such that like people will see the work that you do and they're like, oh, it's not just one extra widget that was just built, or it's just one extra page or HTML, CSS that you just did. Like you're building projects that is even helping you to go to the library to go read before you actually even implement. Like that is carving a niche for yourself, such that like when people see it, they are like, oh yeah, someone did something very interesting. And I think that's very important. So that and pushing the boundaries of what is possible is exactly how you carve a niche for yourself.
Yeah, I think working on like open source projects also, like Babatunde said. So you work open source projects, they're open, you can't go wrong with it. You bring in new ideas to the table. So it could be a crazy idea. You'll be surprised somebody else has something, that's similar to what you're thinking about. So you guys are like coming together to like make that possible. And you never know, 2 years down the line, some company will start up based on that crazy idea. And it'll be like, hey, the first person that worked on it was this guy. He never wrote a paper on it, but it was on GitHub, so they just go pull your code and like, hey, do you want to join this team? It looks like you started this thing, you have an idea. What would you like? That's a niche right there. And I'll say, while speaking to people, if you have, say, you have experience, you like, oh, so I moved this company from like 400 million to like X number of, I moved my team from like 20% efficiency to like 50% efficiency. So I'm the go-to guy when it comes to like questions concerning, storage or like security, So in your team, like you take security, anything security is you in your team. So you in your being the security guy in your team, everyone comes to you like, hey, we want to do a security project, oh, Tega as a guy. You want to do anything security, Tega as a guy. So that alone is like a niche. So sitting on the team, I'm talking about you being in the company already. Sitting on the team, you'll be able to like look at loopholes where people haven't filled and go fill it up. And those skills are easily transferable. You can, depends on how you write your resume, you can turn those skills as leadership skills also. So coming from outside, if you don't have all the background, I would say what I've said before, the GitHub and the Stack Overflow and all of that stuff. The portfolio, you need to be on your, back burner. But if you come in with like some experience, then those open projects, independent projects that make you think in a different way, if you're using Kafka for something, or say you implemented the technology stack in a different way no one has thought about, and is say it's 2 seconds more efficient than the other one, right? And guess what? 2 seconds over like billions and billions of data is a lot of processing power, and that equates to a lot of dollars. So you making things something that is 2 seconds faster is a lot of efficiency. So yeah, that's the niche.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tega. Thank you, Ngozi, and thank you, Babatunde, for sharing. Before we go, we're at time, but we have one last question. Someone's asking if Babatunde and Tega, if your organizations have any data governance or data management rules that you're aware of.
Yes, I think they are. They're always hiring for those positions. So I don't know what they are right now, but I'm very sure they have data governance, especially with visa. You know, not everyone can have access to PII, you know, so that's really important to them. And they make sure like all of those are managed in a structured environment. And for other companies that like really security conscious, you need what you call a security clearance. That's like second level. It's even, you know, for you to get some security clearance, you probably need to get a green card first. I think that's beyond our scope here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should have data governance and management rules. I would like to connect with you later, so we'll probably go out. Yeah, there you
go. All right.
As for me, I don't data in our organization is not well. So we have a data platform team, and the data platform team is just ensuring that, like, you know, we build on their layer. So people actually build it, and then they have that's another layer on which we build. And we have a team that is actually responsible for that. But I don't know if there is a governance of some sort that we necessarily need when it comes to that. But I could find out if you actually need that. You can reach out to me, and I will definitely help out.
I think you guys have some kind of restriction. So I was working on some Twitter APIs back in the day, and you know, I was able to pull tweets going back like for a year. So after a while, it stopped. So I think I just had like 1 month, you know, history. I was trying to do like some kind of predictive analysis as to predictive and sentimental analysis with whatever we had, you know, on people's tweets, but I couldn't go as far back as like 3 years, which I could do like, I think a week before. It just stopped. So I was wondering like, what happened? Did these guys, so
yeah, we wanted you to buy more.
Probably, restricted.
We wanted you to buy buy the package so that you can go after about that free.
Exactly. Yeah, so free edition.
Yeah, the free edition is possibly the 3 months that you got. Yeah, so I used to work on that team, and there are like things that we have to ensure that like you don't do all of that. But yeah, so that's that. But I don't think we don't call it governance. It's just like the API on which you have, and then if you want to do more, we actually have different grades. And the one grade is that, oh yeah, it's just for how do I say? I can connect with you. I don't want to open my mouth.
Okay.
We can talk with you.
All right, then. With that being said, we'll come to the end of today's session. Thank you all so much. Thank you to everyone who's joined. I really, really, really appreciate your time. And I hope for people who stayed on the call, I really hope that you guys really learned something that you could, you know, take and learn as you apply, you know, like your job search or being in the industry. But thank you to everyone who's joined. We're going to upload this video on our YouTube channel, and then we'll send it out to everyone as well. We'll send the recording out to everyone as well. So you can connect with us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and we are Nigeria to America. Thank you. Watch out for our next session. It's going to be on non-tech roles in the tech industry, like some of those roles we talked about today. So program management, account managers, product managers, and we'll learn more about how to get into those specific roles. So thank you again to everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.